Well, welcome to the Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing. I'm Jill Reynolds, and we have a spectacular guest on our show today, Sam Sorbo from Florida. She is the wife of Hercules, Kevin Sorbo. So we can't wait to hear this amazing interview she did with us. And before we do, though, I'd like to let you know Sam is going to be in Branson, Missouri, coming up March 24th. So I'd like to show you a little bit about that. Well, let's go on first to introduce you to Sam, and then we'll come back on with that. So here's Sam Sorbo, and we're so glad you're joining us today. Thank you. The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing, sponsored by Braveheart Workshops Live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me today from the beautiful state of Florida, I believe is where Sam is. Welcome, Sam Sorbo, to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Yes, I'm in Florida and it is beautiful, but I do move around a lot. So you're not wrong in wondering whether I'm actually home or not.
Well, we don't want to miss a minute. So we're going to just jump right in and have you share the good, the bad, and the ugly of your life so people's lives could be transformed. But right before we begin sharing, I want to mention to the audience this amazing organization, a non-for-profit called Moms for America. They're an amazing foundation started by Kimberly Fletcher, and Sam's got her shirt on. But what's so cool is she is coming to Branson, Missouri. I'm going to show you the flyer. She's coming to the Legacy Awards Gala, which will be Friday, March the 24th at 6 p.m. at the Chateau on the Lake. With her will be our amazing friend Kirk Cameron, and our special guest, congressional leader Mark Alfred, will be there, along with Pierce Eero, the musicians here in Branson. So there are still tickets available. You do not want to miss this. So go to their website today and get your tickets for only $75 and meet Sam in person. So Sam, dig right in and share with us all about your life and then how it's led you to the amazing woman of God you are today and what you're doing.
So I first of all, kudos to you for having a podcast like this. Like, this is a lot of fun. And yes, I am wearing my Moms for America t-shirt. You can see it beyond the microphone there. I like to tell this story because it's a story of priorities and the idea that our choices are binary. And the reason that I say that is because I minister in my ministry. My mission is to empower parents to home educate, to homeschool their kids. And what I find is that parents are disabled from even making decisions, in a sense, by our culture that we get enculturated in our schools, right? And so I'm trying to break those chains. So we'll start with this idea that choices are binary. And you'll say to me, but that can't be true because in school we're taught to make pros and cons lists. And so choices are confusing and burdensome and difficult, but they really aren't, because if we prioritize, our choice becomes clear. And so we step back. When I was a young woman, I wanted to be married. I wanted to have children. And I prayed to God. I said to God, listen, I get it now, because I was a little bit older. I was like, okay, I'm going to meet the guy and he's not going to be perfect. I get there's going to be a compromise. I just need to know what the compromise is. And once I know that's the compromise, then I will make it. And that was the deal that I made with God. Was he going to be short? Was he going to be ugly? Was he going to be stupid? Was he going to be like, any of these number of things? And that was the deal I made with God. And then fast forward to, I booked a role on Hercules. I played a princess. And I flew down to New Zealand and I met the man of my dreams. I met Kevin Sorbo, and Kevin Sorbo was perfect. Like, he was Christian. He had good values. He was conservative. He was talented as an actor. My goodness, he was good looking, like completely just check every single box you could imagine. And he was that guy.
And he was smart.
And so
and smart. He was smart.
Yes. Yes. Obviously, like that, just everything. He was he was fantastic. I hit the jackpot. And so then it was and then we got engaged. And so then I was sort of wondering, like, what is this going to look like? Like, I'm going to be living in, because I'm a career girl, right? I mean, I have a career, and my career was doing really well. I was acting, I did Chicago Hope, and I did movies and stuff. And so what was that going to look like? I was going to be living in LA. He was in New Zealand. I would go back and forth. If I got to New Zealand, then I got a call back on that thing. So then I had to turn around, come back. And how was that all going to work out? And I was just going along with the flow, thinking, well, it'll just work out. It'll just work out the way that it works, right? And then he got really, really, really sick. My husband, my then fiance, suffered 3 strokes and ended up in intensive care. And at the same time, I booked a job that I had auditioned for before that happened. And my agent called and said, congratulations, you booked this job. This is a big deal. And the job was like the Holy Grail. Like, it was a national network commercial, which means a lot of money up front, and then a lot of money when it airs nationally on the networks. It was like the cream of the crop. In fact, not only that, but this is the way that God works. It wasn't even just the very best job. It was the very best job for the very best thing for me, which was ice cream, my favorite. So the promise was ka-ching, all this cash, right? All this money, but also like as much ice cream as I wanted to eat. Like who, first class, all expenses paid trip to New York, the finest hotel, shooting in a fabulous, studio with great people. Like, it was the best thing. And so I went into the intensive care room where Kevin was lying. And I said, listen, I booked this job in New York. Do you want me not to go? And he immediately answered, yes, I want you not to go, because he was fighting for his life, which I knew, but I needed to hear him say, don't go. And in that moment, I realized choices are binary, and I needed to choose my husband, my future, my family, my children, all my possibilities, or my career. Now, a lot of people would say, well, you could do both. No, you can't. That's the other fallacy that we're raised with in our schools, is that you don't have to make choices because you can have it all. That's a lie. And so in that moment, I chose Kevin, and I said to myself, well, actually, I looked up at the ceiling and I said, oh, that's the compromise. Well, I can do that. And it was done. And I walked away from my career. Now, that was, it was easier for me than it might be for somebody else, because I recognized the value exchange. Every choice is a sacrifice, but our schools teach us that sacrifice is bad, right? What's the first thing that you think of when you think of sacrifice? You think, oh, that's just giving something up. Sacrifice. It's the end of something. It's the surrender of something. And that's true, but typically sacrifice is the surrender of something for something of greater value. But in our schools, we don't look at it as surrendering something for something of greater value. We only see it as giving something away, losing something.
Well, and
so we perceive.
So let's pause there for just a moment, because we love Jesus. You and I know, love Jesus. So when you think about the sacrificial gift that Jesus gave to us, giving up his life for the betterment of our forgiveness and eternity with him in heaven. So he sacrificed, but then the blessings have been flowing for all of us in the world to come to him as our personal Savior. So let's keep going on. But that came to me from the Holy Spirit. But
understand, the blessing is to him,
yes,
as well as to us.
Exactly.
Right? He sacrificed his life for the blessing of relationship with us. Mm-hmm. That's why he did it.
Yes.
And yes, we are the beneficiaries of that. And he is the beneficiary of that. And he wouldn't have done it if the value wasn't there. That's the way sacrifice works. And so I sacrificed my career for something much, much, much greater than my career. Now, luckily it worked out, right? It worked out well, but it wouldn't have had the opportunity to work out if I hadn't seen that was the choice to make. And so we have to recognize that. And so often we don't. We think, oh, I don't have to give up anything to get something of greater value. And that's wrong thinking. In fact, we should be looking for where we want to sacrifice in order to get more, right? It's a selfish thing in a sense, but that's okay because it's also a giving thing. It combines the two. And that's the brilliance of God's economy. That it's an economy that we don't learn in school. We learn that the economy is a zero-sum game, even though our government prints money. And so very clearly it's not a zero-sum game. But we still were instilled with this socialist, Marxist ideology that life is a zero-sum game and that whatever you give up is just a loss to you and a gain for somebody else, or vice versa. Whatever you get, you've gotten, or they're ill-gotten gains because somebody else had to sacrifice for that. But we have the example of the opposite of that every day. And so fast forward to the next stage, right? I'd given up my career. We moved from New Zealand. We moved to Canada. Kevin was on the mend. I thought, maybe I'll go back to acting. That was not possible in Canada because Canada doesn't welcome Americans into the acting community up there. They don't want Americans up there working, much different than the Canadians that come down to the United States that are like, yeah, come on in, we'll give you jobs. It's no problem. It's a completely different atmosphere. And then we moved back to LA. And by the time we moved back to LA, I had 3 small children. And I thought, okay, I'm back in LA. I'll get a full-time nanny and I'll go back to acting. I'll just do some auditions. I won't act too much. I'll just do little parts, maybe some TV commercials that are 1 or 2 day shoots. That won't be too much time away from home, but that'll be enough, that'll be good. And I went on like my 3rd audition, and an audition was about a 3-hour process between getting ready to go, leaving the house, driving to the audition, sitting and waiting, doing the audition, coming back home. It was about 3 hours. So if you figure that I was sort of incommunicado with my kids for 3 hours, right? And I came back home, maybe the 3rd audition that I'd been out on. And my little toddler, Octavia, was about 1.5 years. She didn't have a lot of words, but she did have the word no. And she ran up to me with her little finger out saying, no, 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 with a little frown on her face. I was like, what's that about? So I picked her up and I put her on my hip, and she immediately turned to the nanny and she said, bye-bye.
Wow.
And I understood again, it's a binary choice. It's not a multiple choice. It's binary. She sees it as a binary choice. She is the most important person in this room right now. My job is to sacrifice for her. What can I sacrifice for her? Because she's worth every sacrifice as my child, right? And so I walked away from acting again. And it was actually not that hard because auditions are crap. They're just really awful. So I can't say that it was like a huge sacrifice, but I walked away from my career again. And then years later, I'm raising 3 children, Christians, in a largely secular society. I am homeschooling at this point, which means my days are much freer than if my kids were all involved in school. And I know that's a weird fallacy. People think that homeschooling is much more difficult than sending your children to school. And I'm here to tell you it's not. It's actually a lot easier and a lot more pleasant. But I'm home educating my kids, and I'm thinking, wow, their faith is being challenged 8 ways every day. Their faith is just being challenged left, right, and center. I wonder what it would be like, because I'd adopted this attitude that atheism is a very determined faith. You have to have a lot of faith to be an actual atheist. And I thought, what would happen if like an atheist had his faith challenged, like my kids get their faith challenged just by social media, by television, by advertising everywhere. And I thought about that and I thought, wow, that would be an interesting story. That's a movie I'd like to see. And so I wrote the movie. And then 2 weeks into writing the movie, the money came knocking at our door. My husband answered a phone call from an investor who wanted to executive produce a faith-based movie with him. And we flew to New York and pitched the movie in about half an hour, and he wrote a check.
And which
and
film,
so then I was
which film was that one then, Sam? What was that film?
It was called Let There Be Light.
Okay. And I saw that one.
And all of a sudden, I was producing this movie that I was co-writing with a very well-known writer, I should say. He's an Oscar-nominated writer named Dan Gordon. And as we are working on the script together, Dan says, you have to play the wife. And I was like, no, that's not something that I know at all. And he said, of course, you have to play the wife and your kids have to play the kids. In fact, we should write a part for your daughter. And I said, well, I really don't know about that because my children can't really act. But they'd been taking acting classes, and unbeknownst to me, they'd learned how to act in the acting classes. I was quite a snob about acting abilities or whatever, I suppose. And so I said to him, well, I'll audition them. And so I auditioned my children for the role, and they were amazing. I was like, when did you learn this? Because they never did any showcases or anything. They were just naturals all of a sudden. Whereas before they started taking acting classes, like you couldn't even get my child to say hello normally. If you gave him a line to read, he'd say, hello. Like that would be his line reading. It was scary. I'd be like, no, don't try. So we ended up producing a film made for families by a family. And it's called Let There Be Light. And it ran for 4 months in theaters. It did very, very well. I'm told that it basically broke people's heads at how well it performed, because nobody figured that an independent little movie like that could perform so well. It ran on Prime for 3 years. It's now just available digitally, kind of anywhere. We still have DVDs that we package with bundles over at SorboStudios.com. And so God redeems, right? Mm-hmm. And so I suppose that's the beautiful, because not only did I get the husband of my dreams and children with whom I have an incredible relationship, my career was redeemed as well. Not that I was really missing it, but it's kind of like, so when my kids were younger, I pulled my oldest out of school right after second grade, because I felt like I said this to Kevin at the time. I said, I think I can fail homeschooling him and he'll still be better off than if he goes to school every day.
Wow.
And I believed that, but a year and a half later, I felt so insecure that I enrolled my two boys. So Braden was in I did a year and a half. So Braden was in fourth grade and Shane was in second. And I enrolled them in a little private, tiny little Christian school in the hybrid program. So we homeschooled for 3 days a week and we did 2 days of school. And that lasted about 6 weeks. And then I had a meeting with the teacher, because I wanted to make sure that I was doing my part, that I was performing like they wanted me to, because they would send home homework and I would do it with the kids because I was homeschooling, right? And so I had a meeting with the teacher, and the teacher talked to me for 5 minutes about how well behaved my little Shane was. And I had this little voice in the back of my head saying, I know he's well behaved. Why? This isn't really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about education. In fact, I'd rather that he was disruptive, that you were complaining to me that he's constantly with his hand up, asking questions, that he's never satisfied with that much knowledge. He always wants more. That's what I want to hear. But that's not what she told me. I thought, wait a minute. Her focus is behavior management. Because it doesn't matter if you're a Christian. If you went to a teaching college, which is how you get accredited to teach in school, you were trained on behavior management. Because most of our teaching colleges, if not all, are now completely Marxist indoctrinated.
Well, and I want to pause that for just a second, because even when parents decide they're going to send their children to Christian schools, and you, I'm sure you'll agree, what do? They just go and they enroll their children in a Christian school. But when my son, I wish they homeschooled, they don't. But when my son wanted to send his children to a Christian school, Sam, he went to a Catholic school and he went to a Lutheran school. When he walked into the Catholic school, he asked them, "Are you teaching creation or evolution or both?" And they said, "Oh, we teach both." When he went to the Lutheran school, he asked him and they said, "No, we just teach creation." He said, "Then I'll send my kids here." But it's, again, parents do not ask those types of questions. They just enroll their children thinking they're going to get the right education.
Yes, because they went to school and they were taught not to ask questions.
Yes.
So, and this is one of the things that I teach on. So if you're at all interested in figuring out how to home educate your child, and trust me, it is much easier than you ever dreamed and a lot more rewarding than you ever imagined. And in fact, I've often said that our schools have presided over the greatest theft in human history, because they've stolen the family and they've actually made the parents complicit in that grand larceny. So if you want to preserve the family and keep your children home and educate them, I can show you how, and you can go to samsorbo.com. But when the child is enrolled in school at the age of 5 or 6, and the child is, as we know, young children are infinitely curious, right? They're imbued by their creator with this insatiable curiosity. Why? How come? What for? Why? When? How many? Why? Right? Just constant questions. They go to school and they're taught, sit down, shut up. And what do they have to do in order to ask a question? They actually have to raise their hand. That's a barrier to entry. That's teaching them don't question. School shuts down the creative process, shuts down the education of the child, just turns it off, just says, no, you will only learn what you are taught by this institution, by this individual. And that is education, and it is not. But that's what we think education is. And so parents think that if they just go and they subscribe to a school somewhere, they will receive education, but they won't. It's a losing proposition, because it's a lie.
So let's pause there for just a second, because I wanted to show your bio for just a second. So here's Sam's bio, and it's got different links on how to reach out to her and connect with her. So I want to make sure you know about that on the screen. But when we come back here on the screen here just for a moment, I want you to address this, because I heard you say this and it was so inspirational to me. So 2 things. Parents tend to think, oh, I can't homeschool because I'm not smart enough, or I can't homeschool because my kids shouldn't be homeschooled because they need more socialization. But then the third one I want you to address in closing is the parents then who decide to send their children to college because they need a college education. I remember when you were at my home in Branson for the film festival, and a girlfriend was here for lunch talking about sending her daughter to different colleges, and you looked at her and said, why? They can be educated online and get a degree. So talk on those 3 points, because those are 3 I'm sure parents always say that makes them believe the lie that they shouldn't homeschool.
Well, I forgot the first one now.
Okay,
what was the first one?
Okay, the first one was I'm not smart enough. The second one.
Okay, let's talk about that. Yeah. It's fine, because I can't keep it all in my head. I'm not smart enough. You're not smart enough, but you graduated high school, but you're too stupid to teach a 2nd grader, but you're still going to put your 2nd grader in the system that made you not smart enough to teach a 2nd grader.
Okay. Yep.
Maybe you aren't smart enough, because that's just dumb.
Yep.
I'm kidding.
Yes.
You're more than smart enough. It's a second grader. It's a third grader. So what I want to do is I want to encourage parents with younger children, just wait to send them to school. Just take kindergarten off, take first grade off, then take second grade off. Do a little bit of work with them and see what happens. Children are innately curious. They will teach themselves what they want to learn, as long as you put the guardrails on. No internet. No just free, go look on YouTube for whatever you want. Nothing like that. Give them good books. Give them some math workbooks. See what they come up with. Because children are innately curious. They will teach themselves what they want to learn. And I know this by example. My daughter taught me that. Secondly, so let's take the college question, because I do remember that. The question is not what college, the question is why college, right? So my son was just approached. Why aren't you going to college? He said, because I can find better ways of getting in debt.
That's amazing. I love
Seriously,
that.
like college is so flipping expensive. For what? What are you going to college for? To what end? And did you know you can go to college without a high school diploma, and you can go to a higher level school without necessarily having a college degree.
But now,
if you pass the entrance exam,
yeah,
they want your money.
Well,
they want your money. And the whole thing is like a Ponzi scheme. And so it's a Ponzi scheme because what they do is they've got your kid for 12 years, convincing him that he needs to spend money on college. They spend 12 years convincing the child and the parents they've got to go spend money on college. Why? They never say. The
lie that they need to indoctrinate that child, and they want to make sure they're indoctrinated before they are out of school. Because if you don't think about this for just a moment, if you don't believe the lie that it's indoctrination to take control over your children's minds, you will not understand why are they right now saying they're going to write off all college debt, which means 20% of the population goes to college, and they're going to write off the debt so that 80% of us will pay for those 20% people's education that just got indoctrinated.
Yeah, but if they do that, then I'm suing to recoup the debt that I incurred at Duke University these many years ago, plus interest.
Absolutely. The last question that I said was, parents think their kids aren't going to have enough socialization by staying home. So can you address how many?
I'm happy to address that. We don't know what socialization is. That's like this nebulous idea of he'll have lots of friends. And we know that that's a lie. So why do we perpetuate the lie? It's just because they have nothing else to say. They're looking for a good excuse to not have to think. Full stop, not have to think. Because in school, we're taught, don't ask, don't try, don't think. Don't ask, don't try, don't think. Failure's bad, don't try. Questions are difficult. You got the barrier to entry. Don't ask. Just sit there and shut up and don't ask. And then don't think we're taught because you really only want to have to learn or memorize what's on the exam. And that lesson is don't think. So what's happened is all of that has grown up with the child. And now we're in this state of abdication of thought. So trust the experts, right? We see that everywhere right now. Trust the experts. You disagree with what they're telling you to do in masking or whatever with your body. You don't question it, don't ask, and don't think, just do. Okay? And so that's the society that we've created, that the schools have actually created with our compliance. And so what we want to do is the reverse of that. We want to take our children out of that system. We want to free their minds so that they can become the problem solvers, because right now we're a generation of non-problem solvers. In fact, colleges now are looking for homeschooled kids because they want people who think outside the box. And businesses now are actually more inclined or becoming more inclined to hiring young people who haven't graduated college, because they understand that if you went all the way through the system, you think inside the box. You are not a problem solver. You are not innovative. You follow rules, you follow directions. You just hopefully do what you're told, but you can't think your way outside a paper bag. And so, we as parents, if you want to, if, and it's a big responsibility, but you took it on when you gave birth, right? So as parents, we need to take a step back, reevaluate what we're looking for in the education of our children. And that's what I help with. So for instance, I've developed this new resource for parents. So I'll do a shameless plug here. It's called the Playbook for Home Learning. It's developed off of a conference that I put together. And so this is a workbook for parents. And we go through these questions, and I ask these pertinent questions of you so that you can evaluate for yourself what your goals and priorities are for your children, and then how best to go about accomplishing them. And we look at what home learning is, what it can be. It's bigger and broader and more bright of a future than you could ever imagine, but you wouldn't imagine it because you grew up inside the system. And even if you were homeschooled, I'm finding that young parents who were homeschooled were schooled to the degree they're not quite free of that system. And so they're thinking, oh, I have to dot my I's, I have to cross my T's, I've got to get tests done and whatever. Now, different states are different in their requirements, but even in states where there are no requirements, you've got parents who are like, but how can I get my child tested? You don't have to have your child tested. If you're the primary educator of your child, you know where your child is. You know what's going on in their little brain. You know where they're lacking and where they need help. So yeah, that's it. That's my spiel.
And I know you're on a time crunch, so we're going to end here. There's one thing the Holy Spirit keeps sharing with me, telling me, so I want to end this with this, and parents out there, we need to learn how to be truth tellers, because, when we go through life as adults and parents, and we can't be vulnerable with our kids and tell the truth to our own children, and then they try to find the lies outside in the world, they don't really understand what the truth is. And I'm going to share this. One of my girlfriends invited me years ago. I mean, you're taking me back. My son's 40. You're taking me back over 30 years ago. She invited me to speak in her home economics classroom on the differences between abstinence, abortion, and single parenting. And so I got up and I spoke to these girls. They're in high school on that topic. And I feel blessed because God's taken me through those 3 journeys. Before being a Christian, I had abortions, not realizing abortions lead to anxiety, depression, suicide ideation, drug addiction, and all these other things because of the loss of that unborn child. So I shared about what abortion did to my life. Then I shared about when I did get pregnant with my son and made a decision to be a single mom. And then I shared my decision thereafter to remain celibate and pure until I got married. And so when I got done, Sam, this is what blew my mind away. Those young girls in the classroom said in their evaluation to my speech, we wish adults would tell us the truth. We wish people would tell us the truth, because no one in the schools come forward and talk on those 3 levels. They'll just tell you, oh, it's okay if you're wanting to have safe sex to take this drug, or it's okay to go out and abort. They don't tell you the whole story. So kids today are wanting truth telling. And so, Sam, I'd love for you to pray on this. God's told me to do a conference in Branson called Resilient Brave Hearts for such a time as this. And it's going to be a truth-telling conference where we come forward and share with kids about career development, leadership, abstinence, purity, how to overcome suicide ideation, eating disorders. We want to have this a conference of truth-telling for tweens, teens, and college students. So everyone, stay tuned with Braveheart Workshops, and we pray that parents out there will be empowered with what Sam is advocating, what God is telling us, and share the truth with children today, because we need to be their mentors. We need to show them there's a better way in life. Any last words, Sam? I know you've got to go.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that I'm going to have to cut this short because this is such an important conversation. In our schools, we train followers. We don't train leaders. That's why the church is being decimated right now, because our church leadership is followership and not leadership. There are very few pastors out there who are taking a strong stand for truth. We have been taught not to stand for truth. And we know, the kids know in school that they're being lied to, but they can't quite identify it. They know that there's a trick involved, that there's nothing but lies coming from the people who have the responsibility and the authority. And yet, and that just sets up this conundrum inside them. And so your story from 30 years ago, by the way, is really pertinent to this particular issue. If you want to figure out how to become the leadership in your role in your family as the parent, or even just as the individual, go to my website, samsorbo.com, and sign up for the home learning playbook, the playbook for home learning. It's a series of videos. It's also a workbook. It's a whole course to get you thinking differently about education and about the way you were educated. And just check out samsorbo.com. And Jill, thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. I'm going to stop the recording. Stay on for 1 second, Sam, before you log off. Everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm going to ask Sam off the air if we can continue this conversation more so you can learn more. Thanks again for joining the Connection Show. Have a wonderful day.
Hydrogen is used by health professionals as a powerful antioxidant and the #1 tool to fight inflammation. Studies show therapeutic potential in cancer, diabetes, digestive, and heart issues, and essentially every organ and system in the body. This is not medical advice, because I'm not your doctor, but if you have any health concerns, I strongly recommend that you learn more about hydrogen. Get educated at holyhydrogen.com and order the best hydrogen generator known to man. Use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Because hydrogen is the smallest molecule in existence, it can pass through the cell membrane and even the blood-brain barrier to clear out inflammation and free radical damage, where other antioxidants just can't get to. Visit holyhydrogen.com to see the latest technology that elevates your immune system and fights inflammation. Search their research library to see if hydrogen has a track record for helping a health concern you're dealing with. Make sure to use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Remember, holyhydrogen.com.
Amari Global is the mental wellness company. In 2018, Amari won the Nutra Award for the world's first award-winning gut-brain axis nutrition system for their flagship product, the Fundamentals Pack, clinically proven to increase good bacteria in the gut and incredible benefits. Amari means love, and there is love in every bottle. Mental health matters, and Amari is the mental wellness company. Prepare your body's gut microbiome for optimized mental wellness with a reboot and get yourself back to feeling joyful and motivated with mood. Round out your daily nutrition with GBX food systems. Crush your daily to-do list each day with Edge. Support your digestion and immune system with digestive, probiotics, omega, and Vita GBX supplements. Fuel your mental edge with our Mental Fitness Pack. Feel like your best self with the Happy Hormone Pack. Unlock your brain's potential with happy neurons with the Happy Mind Pack. And combine these products for an ultimate day with the Happy Juice Pack. For weight loss and energy, order the Transformational Pack. Our Kids Pack is the first comprehensive mental wellness pack for kids and teens. For a complete mind and body nutrition system, get your kids these today. Begin your wellness journey with Amari's Starter Pack and save. Start with the Entrepreneur Pack if you're serious about making an impact on your mental, physical, and financial wellness. Launch your Amari business with all our top products, packs, offers, and save. Help others achieve overall wellness too and gain financial wellness. Become a mental wellness partner today. Shop now and save. Sign up today by going to our website listed on this page.